Hi, I'm Toby from abletondrummer.com, and I want to show you how you can use your SPD-SX PRO to control stuff in Ableton Live. So how to make a MIDI connection between your SPD-SX PRO and Ableton Live. So there are various ways you can, or various things you can control in Ableton Live, but obviously first you need to make the connection for MIDI, and we are focusing on MIDI in this video here right now. So you would need to make a cable connection here. USB-B goes into the back of your SPD-SX PRO, and then on the other side, depending on your computer, you would have a USB-C or USB-A that would work. You could as well, if you got an external audio interface with a 5-pin DIN MIDI socket, you could use a MIDI cable as well. Go to the out of your SPD-SX, MIDI out, to the in of your external audio interface, MIDI 5-pin in, and that way this would work as well. So why is this interesting? It could be interesting if you have like a if you're playing on a bigger stage and you want to send the MIDI via a longer way than having your computer just like next to your SPD-SX. So then you might want to use the old school MIDI version here. Okay, so first you need to make sure that when the stuff is connected, that the ports are activated in Ableton Live. So for this, you would need to go into your preferences in Ableton Live and have a look on the link tempo MIDI here. And there you can see the SPD-SX is showing up here for the in and for the out. So for at the moment now we'll want to send stuff into a track. So to play sounds, or maybe to observe the kit changes here when I show you my SPD-SX PRO kit selector later in the video. You gonna send MIDI into a track and out of a track in Ableton Live. So you want to make sure that out for track and in for track is being activated. Okay, so on the SPD-SX itself, you have a few things you should know. So you can use different drivers here. Drivers are just like the protocol which is like on your computer being able to communicate with the SPD-SX PRO. So if you go into the menu and if you go to USB audio, a bit hidden up here, there is something called driver mode, and you can change this between generic and vendor. So generic would only work for MIDI. That's good because you don't need to install a driver on your computer. But if you want to use the audio here as well, so if you want to use the SPD-SX to send out audio from Ableton Live, for example, you would need to set this to vendor, and you would need to install the driver from Roland on your computer for your SPD-SX PRO. Okay, as we are focusing on MIDI right here now, I'm gonna leave this to generic. So this will work straight away if you connect it to a computer. Your computer should be detected automatically. If not, update your OS. Okay, so we can leave the menu right here now, and now we have made the right settings on the SPD-SX PRO and the right settings in Ableton Live to be able to receive MIDI here already. And you can always see that when I'm playing my SPD-SX, you can see that on the top right corner here in Ableton Live, MIDI is being received. Yeah, there is a MIDI indicator here. So I could now create a new MIDI track, and bam, I could already see another indicator in here that I'm receiving MIDI as well. So I want to make, and this is like something people always forget, I want to make sure that this track only receives MIDI from the SPD-SX PRO, because you might use different controllers, different MIDI controllers here, and you don't want to mess up things by sending all ins like from a different MIDI controller onto this track as well. So let's make sure to set this to the SPD-SX Pro here only, and you can observe the channels as well. So per default, electronic drum devices are set to channel 10, and we can see on the indicator here that we are receiving stuff on channel 10. Okay, I can leave this to all channels now because I separated the ports by selecting SPD-SX Pro here. Okay, so now the MIDI 2 is not interesting for now because we only want to receive MIDI from the SPD-SX, for example, to play sounds on here. So I could now go to my drum rack section here in Ableton Live and just select a different kit here, place it on the track, and we see we get a few sounds here already. I just gonna click them via my mouse now. Okay, and those samples are hosted in drum rack cells here, and they are dedicated to a certain pitch. So MIDI is being sent via, or the message we are talking about here is MIDI note message, and it's sending on a certain pitch value or MIDI note number, you could say as well. So if I'm playing this, we don't hear nothing. We are receiving stuff on this channel, but we need to make sure that this track is activated via the arm function here, or we could set the monitor to in. So the MIDI received via this port on this track is now being routed to the instrument, in this case the drum rack. And we can see something here. We are getting MIDI in here, but we are not receiving MIDI on the right slot. So if I move up here, you can see I'm actually sending an F#3, a G3, you know, depending on the pads here, I get different MIDI note pitches here. So there are a few different ways on how to change MIDI note pitches on your SPD-SX. You can do this via your pad edit menu on the SPD-SX itself. You can do this via the SPD-SX Pro app. Or you could just quickly, and that's something which you can do if you have Max for Live, which is included in Ableton Live Suite. You could use Max for Live devices. So for example, I have a drum rack tuner here, which translates quite nice visually to those slots here. So I want to play the kick drum. And this kick drum is receiving on C1. This is kind of like a standard for a lot of the racks, or for, like, I would say like 80 to 90% of drum VSTs and drumming software. And especially in Ableton Live, you want to send a C1 if you want to trigger a kick drum sample. Okay, so visually I got this in here. This is a device drum rack tuner which you can use for that. So if I now press S here for syncing, and if I now hit my pad, it will automatically detect the note I'm sending here, which is an F#3. So this pad is sending an F#3, but it's now being repitched to the C1 pitch, which I need for triggering this kick drum here. Okay, so this way I can quickly set up stuff here, change pitches in the drum rack, and then save this new drum rack preset tuner or drum rack tuner preset in my user library, and always recall that if I'm, for example, on kit number 56, because I'm sending those MIDI notes here and they will get translated quick. There is another device here. Links to the devices I'm using here are in the video description. Yes, so this drum rack tuner device here is part of a bundle. So you will get, I think it's 5 devices, and it's some other stuff is included there as well. So if you just need the tuning function here, have a look for the link in the video description for the MIDI note tuner version 2. So this works a little bit different. So we can actually, let's set this to default. So it will look like this when you open it and you select a note number and a slot you want to repitch here. So I just gonna select number 1, gonna hit a pad, and it's detecting my pad here already, F#3 or G-flat-3. And I can change this now to a pitch I would like to play in the drum rack. So I know this is C1, C#1, D sharp 1. So if we, for example, want to trigger the snare drum, we need to repitch our MIDI to D1. So I just put this in here, and now this pad sending an F sharp 3 in here, but it's getting repitched to a D1, and I can play my snare here. So the same goes here as well. If you quickly want to repitch stuff, this is an option, obviously, and as I mentioned before, you can change the MIDI note pitches of every pad, every trigger, and pedals and triggers you connected to the SPD-SX inside the SPD-SX as well, or via the SPD-SX Pro app. Always when I'm saying SPD-SX, in this case, I mean the Pro, because we're on the Pro, you know. Okay, so let me show you another thing which you can do now. So you have a lot of kits, and you might gonna use the SPD-SX Pro for hosting the sounds there. So you might not want to play sounds in Ableton Live, trigger sounds in Ableton Live. You might gonna have the sounds and samples on your SPD-SX. But this could mean you are using Ableton Live for backing tracks, sending out backing track stuff. So a lot of people are doing this in arrangement view. So let's say you have some stuff here, which is song 1. Let's switch on the view here, a little bit different. So if we have a MIDI track here, and I need to set this to auto. So let's say we have a MIDI track here, and this clip should be activated. So let's say this is your song 1, and we have another song here which is your song 2. Okay, so if you're running tracks in Ableton Live, you know what I mean. You have different clips here, you have different songs, but you want the SPD-SX to change. So for example, in this song section here, you want the SPD-SX to be on kit number 56 at this point, and then you want to change to kit number 57 or a different kit automatically when you are playing those different 2 songs here. And I want to show you how you can set this up. Excuse me. Because you can set this up automatically via a different device of mine, which is the SPD-SX Pro Scene Kit Selector. Yeah, and forget about the patching here, because that's just for me. Okay, so now you want to be able to change the kit selection on your SPD-SX because you have different sounds on there via Ableton Live, and you can do this with this device. So you can see already, if I'm clicking here in Ableton Live, the kits are changing on my SPD-SX, yeah, so I can dive through those as well, or I could get a menu with all the different names, and I could even set different names on here as well. So if I have like this user kit here, 66, I could rename this AC/DC, for example, yeah. So I now have this name in here, and I get those different names in the menu here as well, so I get some more orientation here as well. Obviously, if you want to change stuff, you want this automated, because you don't want to push the buttons here, and you want to make sure that you're on the right sounds for your right song here. So with this kit selector, you can actually automate stuff here. So for example, if we switch on the automation view, which I can do via pressing A as well, or via clicking on this sign here, I now get different opportunities to select different parameters. I want to change the kit dial, which is this parameter here. Yeah, so I want to set on this red line you're seeing now, I want to set like different points here where I could move to a different kit. And just to show you, if you're playing this clip, it's jumping to the different kit automatically. So now, boom, it's jumping automatically to kit number 46. And if your song, you have different samples on there, now would be changing to this already. Okay, so how can you set this up? So first of all, maybe let's have a look in here, because the menus here are a little bit nicer. So you need a MIDI track as well, and on this MIDI track you're gonna place the SPD-SX PRO Scene Kit Selector. So once more, you would need Max for Live for that to make this happen. Max for Live is included in Ableton Live Suite, or in Ableton Live Standard for Ableton Live Standard, but it needs to be purchased as a separate thingy. Yeah, so if you only have Standard, or if you're using Intro, you can always get the free trial for 3 months to check it out, the Suite trial, if it's worth the investment for you and if that makes sense. Yeah, so you can get the SPD-SX PRO Scene Kit Selector, long word for a plugin, on my page as well, abletondrummer.com, and direct links are in the video description here as well. So you place this on there, but now you need to make sure that this track is receiving and is sending to the SPD-SX. So here again, you want to select the SPD-SX PRO. You want to make sure that this is set to in, the monitor is set to in. You don't want to record changes on here, actually. So in would be the best option here. So now this is being sent through, and you want to set the MIDI to your SPD-SX PRO. And once more, you need to make sure that your out port in the preferences, in Ableton Live preferences, the out port, like out, this one here, out SPD-SX PRO, that the track is activated. If that isn't activated, you can see it instantly grays out because that port isn't available anymore. Bam, and it's back here again. Really important here now is the channel, because you need to define the channel you are sending to the SPD-SX. So in this, like per default, it's channel 10, and I just set it to 9. Let's set it to 10. So, and now this is all the connection you need to make, and you can see as soon as this is made, I can click on this, and the kit number will change on the SPD-SX. And if you do manually change stuff here, you get a visual feedback here as now on which kit you are. So I'm now changing this on the SPD-SX, and let's see the names here maybe. Yeah, so you can see now it's syncing up from the SPD-SX. Yeah, so it can talk into both directions here if you have your MIDI from and your MIDI to set right up here. Okay, so there is one thing I nearly forgot to put in. You need to tell the SPD-SX so that it's gonna receive and send MIDI kit changes, like the kit changes. This is set per default to off, and you need to turn this on. So if you go to the menu, and then if you go to System MIDI, you press Enter, you have Program Change TX and Program Change RX, and you need to make sure that you have set those both to on and off. So kit changes from the SPD-SX PRO will be sent out to Ableton Live, and if you do stuff in Ableton Live and send those to the SX PRO, they will be received. So this is what you need to make sure that this is both on. Okay, so let's do some automations. So let's go back here and let's fold this down for a second, and let's have a look. Kit up, kit dial. We want to go to the kit dial parameter, which is the parameter where you can select all those different 200 kits on your SPD-SX here. So we created an automation here already, but this automation is grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Because this automation is kind of like deactivated because I manually changed stuff here. Yeah, so if you want to use this automation, this line needs to be red and not grayed out. And you can do this via re-enable automation. You just click on here, and now this automation is being activated again. So you don't delete the automation by changing stuff manually, but you deactivate it because you are selecting a different kit than you put into the automation where it should be happening here. Okay, so let's create a track just to visualize song changes. So let's do this again. We have a song. Maybe let's do this again. So we got a song here, and we got a song here, and maybe we even want to change inside the songs. We want to change different to different kits inside the song. So maybe let's say this song here, the first song, will start with kit number 5. Let me select some different colors so that's a bit more obvious. So we're gonna set a breakpoint here via going over the red line, and you can see as soon as I'm going over the red line, it gives me the opportunity to set a breakpoint here. So I hover over it and I just click, and now I got this breakpoint, and now I can define this breakpoint. So this breakpoint defining could be like drag and shift and move your mouse up down. So this way I could select different things, and you can as well press right click on it and go to the edit value, and now I can put in a number here as well. So maybe let's select number 20. I'm changing the numbers all the time. So you want to make sure this breakpoint is happening on the same point where your set starts. So maybe let's set this one to 1 here just to make it really obvious. And then maybe let's say half through the song here you want to change. So I need to set, for a change, I need to set 2 more breakpoints here actually. So let's set 1 on the same value, and then set 1 maybe on 23. I'm just making up numbers here. Okay, so now at this point here, the SPD-SX Pro will change its kit from number 20 to number 23. So, and it looks like this, and maybe that's a little bit too fast. So I'm playing the song now, and then up on this breakpoint, it will change to the different kit number here. Okay, so that's how the kit selector works. You can get this on my page, abletondrummer.com. Just look for the SPD-SX Pro kit selector. If it's not on the front page, you get a type in field, a search bar there, or just search it on Google and you will find it as well. So the Pro version of this plugin is a little bit different than the non-Pro version, the SX or SX Pro. I mean, because you got more kits on the Pro. You have like up to 200 kits here. So if I move that 200 kits, and on the SX, on the former version, the non-Pro version, you only get up to 100 kits, if I recall that right. So that's why here's some difference, and it needs to send some more information than only just one single program change up here. Okay, so that's why there is a different version for the Pro version, and obviously you have the different names in here as well, because you got different kit sounds as well. Okay, so obviously there are a few more devices for the SPD-SX, and some of those will work with the SPD-SX Pro, and most of them, to be honest, most of them will work because it's just simple MIDI notes being sent from the SX to Ableton Live or to my Max for Live plugins. So there are a few more plugins if you want to check them out. Okay, so there are 1 to 2 more exciting ways on how to use the SX buttons here to control stuff in Ableton Live. So those are actually not buttons, they are dials. So you are able to use those 3 dials here, the master effect and the pad edit dials here to control, for example, a volume in Ableton Live if you need that. Okay, so what do you need to do? So let's start on the SX Pro first. So let's go into the menu and we select System here, and then we go to System MIDI, enter, and we want to go to the basics, and you want to make sure that your first thing here, the MIDI TXRXSW switch, is turned to on, so that you're gonna send out and receive MIDI like from those dials here as well. So let's exit this menu. No, actually we need to change one more thing in the same menu. So we need to go down to control. Okay, so if you select control here now, so first we were in the basic tab view here. So if we go now to control, we have the first section here, which is master effect control CC. Okay, and this is per default, I guess this is turned off. I can't remember, but I'm sure it's off. Actually, you want to change this to a number, a CC, MIDI CC number you want to send stuff on. So let's set this to 4, for example. It's just a random number I'm picking here, but you need to make sure to remember this number you're selecting here, because this becomes later on, like after half a year, if you're changing stuff here and it's not matching anymore to your mappings you made in Ableton Live, that's not nice. So remember this number. So I use 4 here. And now we need to go to Ableton Live. And we want to switch on a different MIDI port input here for the SX now. So if we go to the preferences here again, link tempo MIDI, we want to make sure to receive from the SX Pro, we want to receive remote MIDI, remote data here. So we want to control stuff here. We want to do some remote actions here. So we need to switch this one on. And now, if we go to Ableton Live, we can see again here, we are now receiving MIDI control change data, or continuous control to name it, right? So I'm moving this knob here and we can see MIDI is being received. So now I want to map this MIDI to control stuff in Ableton Live. So I need to go into my MIDI map menu, and I can do this by activating this MIDI button up here, or I could do this by Control or Command M. Control for Windows, Command M for Mac. And now I'm gonna select this volume fader here, and I just move this button here, and it's not receiving any data. That's interesting, because it should actually, and no, I switched on the wrong port here. So this is really important. So the in port in the MIDI should be turned on, the remote input. So this is stuff which is happening all the time, and you should be familiar with like what those mean. So track, if you remember beginning of this video, if you want to play sounds in Ableton Live, you want to send MIDI into a track. If you want to use and sync up the kit selector, Max for Live device of mine, you want to send MIDI into a track. So this one needs to be turned on. If you want to control stuff in Ableton Live, if you want to MIDI map stuff in Ableton Live, you would need to have the remote field here being activated. Okay, so let's go back. We go back to Ableton Live, we select MIDI, we select this volume fader here, and now I'm moving this, and you can see a MIDI mapping is showing up here. Now I'm sending on channel 10 number 4, and that's the number I put in before here. So now if I move this dial here, you can see, yeah, the fader will move as well. Okay, so we got 2 more knobs here we could set up the same way like we just did with the Master Effects one here, to change faders or volume or whatever in Ableton Live via those dials from our SPD-SX. Okay, so what we need to do for that, we first need to define like what those buttons should do on the SPD-SX, if they should send MIDI or not, and on what MIDI number. So we need to go into the menu, and this time we want to go to System. So we go to System, and under System we got the control set up here. I press Enter. And now I could set, if we want to use those buttons here for different things. So they are actually used for, like on the SPD-SX, if you have your sounds on the SPD-SX, you can control volume, pitch, and different effects here. But we want to use those to send MIDI. So what we want to do is we want to change the assign template to pad edit knob CC. Yeah, so now we are in the CC section here, and we could tell this on what it should send. So if we have this here, we could actually change this to pad edit knob CC. That's important. I just checked if like what the other options here is, and you can change it to a master effect here as well, but we want to do CC. So pad edit knob CC should the first parameter group should be named here. Okay, so then if we go to parameter, we want to turn this on. So we now have different CC01, which would be modulation. Usually those names here are just certain MIDI standards which are used, but in our case we just focus on the numbers. So we could set this to number 1 and 2, for example. So let's set the first one to number 1, CC01, and let's go to the second one, and there we gotta do the same. Change this to pad edit knob CC, the group, and then CC02. I select CC02. So now I have 1, 2, and 4. Interesting. Maybe I should change those to 1, 2, 3. It would make more sense to remember later on. Anyways, for now I keep this like that, and you have the channel below here as well. So keep it on channel 10. There is not much reason at this point to change this to a different channel. So everything from the SPD-SX is being sent on channel 10 to Ableton Live, and everything from Ableton Live is sent or to the SPD-SX, or the SPD-SX only receiving on channel 10 here as well. So that makes sense to keep it this way. Okay, so let's exit that again. And now if we move the pad, the knobs here, you can see it shows me pad edit knob is off. So I actually always need to turn that one on, and I need to make sure that I press it 3 times and both lights are lighting up. So now it is set to the mode I could define, the CC mode here. So now it's actually sending CCs, and I could see that on the screen of the SPD-SX here as well. So now I just need to map those in Ableton Live. So I go to the MIDI map menu and maybe just select some different parameters here. I select the fader here and select a different fader here. And then I move the knob I want to map there. I leave the MIDI map menu, bam. And now I can control those parameters here, the faders here, via the dials of my SPD-SX. So this could become handy. For example, if you're using backing tracks in Ableton Live, and if you want to change the click which is coming from Ableton Live as well, or some cues, you know, the volume of the cues, you can now do this change via your SPD-SX. You don't have to go onto the screen to Ableton Live, or maybe someone else in your band is running the backing tracks and you just want to make sure that the volume of your click track, which is coming, if it's coming from Ableton Live, can be controlled directly you can control this directly yourself via those knobs here. So obviously you always need to make sure that this knob state, or those knob states here, are set to the third one. So unfortunately this will change on every kit here as well. So you could set those always to system. So if you go to a different kit here, you can see those are being set to something else. MFX control is set to tape echo here. So what you need to do is you need to set this for every kit here. You need to set this to system to make sure that the knobs are doing that as well. I haven't found a way to set this globally. Maybe there is something, but I looked through the manual, everything where every page where MIDI is printed on, and I couldn't find a way to set this globally, like for every kit. So you need to make sure to set this on every kit, and then you're fine to run this way. Nice one.